Good day, I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. It's Wednesday, April the 26th, 2023, and we've got COO Colin Bletsky of MustGrow joining us. MustGrow is an ag tech company focused on patented natural science-based plant protection and soil amendment solutions. It's been over a year since we've had a talk with MustGrow, and it's great to have them back. The company has just announced development of biofertility and soil amendment programs, and Colin is here to discuss this and provide general update and Q&A from the audience. But please remember, this is neither recommendation or investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Colin, thank you very much for joining us. How are things going at MustGrow?
They're going great, Martin. Thank you. And thanks for having us again. And I guess just for the new people, for folks who don't know me, my name is Colin Bletsky. I am the CEO of MustGrow, and my background is agriculture. I'm still involved in a family farm. I've been in the ag space with a chemical company, Syngenta. I was with a Danish organization called Novozymes looking at the sustainable agriculture. So I live, breathe, and eat agriculture, and we all do. We should be eating agriculture. So anyway, Martin, thank you for having me. And what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to go through our presentation as a quick update, talk through some key points. I'll try to keep it to 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll leave the rest of the time for discussion and questions, just so we don't run out of time for that aspect. So just as you know, our forward-looking disclaimer, so we may be talking about things that are forward-looking, so just the standard disclaimer. So who are we? And we do believe and still believe that we are a unique biotechnology opportunity. And if you look at what we do, we utilize what nature's given us. We do extracts out of mustard seeds, so plant-based extracts, and we put these back into agricultural production systems. And really, we've now expanded this into other areas. So we have multiple different opportunities for pathways and commercialization, and really on the big global scale, opportunities to help agriculture become more sustainable. So we have three key areas that we work in. Right now, starting in one of the newest areas is in the pre-plant soil amendment and biofertility area. First, we're going to be looking to launch our brand called Terrasante in the soil amendment, really looking at enhancing that soil and bringing soil health back to the forefront. Then down the line, looking at other biofertility products, which could help either potentially replace or complement the fertilizers that are used to date. The other area is in the pre-plant biocontrol and soil biocontrol, and this is the area we've been working with our partners and continue to work with our partners globally. First and foremost with TerraMG as a pre-plant biopesticide to really treat soil-borne diseases, pests, and specifically looking at nematode applications across the globe. And then also our bioherbicide, which is looking at utilizing the properties of mustard to help kill and control weeds. And then if you look at the opportunity and what mustard has given us and nature's given us is the post-harvest and biocontrol and food preservation. And this is another area. About 50% of the world's food is lost in the value chain. We're looking at how do we help with controlling and storage, specifically on potatoes, fruit and vegetables, and then also down the line into looking at stored grain, bulk grains, and shipping containers. So if you think of our pipeline, we're really focused in those three areas: the fertility, pre-plant biocontrol, and the post-harvest food preservation. So when you look at us, we do believe we still are a unique investment opportunity in agriculture, and we have a tremendous patent portfolio. And this is something going from 23 patents all the way to close to 84 or over 84 now. We've done a great job and done a tremendous amount of work with our partners and ourselves internally to expand this IP portfolio. And as I mentioned, we're in these three different markets, and these are significant size markets. If you think of the soil amendment biofertility market, it's expected to be over about a $15 billion marketplace by 2030. And it's growing very rapidly, which I'll show you later. If you think of the soil biocontrol, this is another area of rapid growth in the marketplace. And this is another about $17 billion opportunity. And then really focusing on that post-harvest biocontrol and food preservation, if you just think of fruit and vegetables, some closer to markets, it's about a $1.3 billion opportunity. So nothing's changed. The market continues to grow. It continues to get bigger, and sustainable agriculture is more and more important. So with a lot of the successful field trials that have ongoing and been taken forward by our partners and ourselves over the past number of years, we are quickly transitioning to that commercialization phase and really now starting to focus on Terrasante in that soil amendment application, as well as TerraMG in pre-plant soil biocontrol. And we are still actively seeking and working with different regulatory bodies right across US, Canada. We're moving to Mexico and other potential regions, and we do think that there is a potential for that initial revenue in the next 12 months. And with this, and that's a unique thing that we're always looking at, is when you look at production and defining initial production, we don't see us having to raise any capital or any amounts of capital to move forward, as we've been able to focus and find some key third-party groups that we are working with to help us get to that next level. And when you think of this, I'm in agriculture. I'm excited about what we have and the opportunity we have, but so are our partners. If you think of Bayer working in Europe, Africa, Asia, Middle East, you have Sumitomo Corporation working in the Americas, Janssen PMP on the post-harvest side, and then NexusBioAg here in Canada. We have tremendous partners who helped us learn a lot and continue to be strong supporters of ours. And we do this with a very tight capital structure. If you think of it, roughly about 49 million basic shares outstanding, 55 million diluted, fully diluted. About 20% is inside and advisor owned. And I keep hearing a number that roughly about 12 different groups, approximately, with 12 groups and insiders, there's about 70% ownership. So very tight structure. Our market cap, you can see there, and we still have about $6 million of cash on hand, which for us is about a 2-year runway because of the amount of money that's being invested by our partners and helping us drive this forward. So really, nothing changed on this aspect and where we're going in the market. And if anything, I think the market's even moving forward in a more positive light on what we're trying to do. And if you think of the key things that have to be addressed in agriculture is look at chemicals. We need to produce food. We need to produce more and more food as there's less arable land and more population. But there's a lot of things happening in the background. Governments continue to regulate and deregulate different chemistries and potentially fertilizers. Think of what's happening in Europe. They are trying to get to a 25% organic acres by 2030. If you think of deregulations in Europe, chemicals being removed off the market, new chemicals not having the ability to get in. And then you start thinking about the fertilizer industry and potentially fertilizer cuts that are being proposed by different governments, including Canada. A 30% fertilizer reduction is a significant loss. So how are we going to produce more food to a population that wants safer, more organic, and more sustainable food? And if you think of all this, all these regulatory pressures, everything, we have a perfect opportunity with our natural-based technology to provide a safe alternative for farmers to use. And that's what we have. We have this technology that, one, is effective, and we've been able to show through our partner trials, through our own internal trials, third-party trials, that it is effective and can compete with synthetic chemicals. It's flexible, so growers don't need to change what they do. And that's a key part. You don't want to have any grower pushback. It's safe to humans and the environment. It's organic, so not only do we target the conventional industry, but also the new and growing organic industry globally. It has a positive soil health, so hence why we're now looking and driving towards launching a brand in that area. It does have a positive impact on soil microbiome, which, when you look at all the data behind it, has a positive impact on yield and other soil properties. It's a low environmental impact because it's a natural-based product, and it doesn't have, it has a low water solubility, so limited water runoff. It's efficient versus cover cropping, and mustard cover crops are used still to date right around the globe in many different areas. We have a very efficient product compared to those, and economical. And we still see this with the production process, with the way we're able to extract and the patented and know-how we have behind that extraction process. We believe we can go in and compete on head-to-head on a price basis with the current synthetic chemicals that we're targeting. And our partners, and I know this slide's been up for many years here. Our partners continue to be advocates and continue to drive a lot of investment for us right around the globe. And this is something that, you know, we have a great fit with each one of these groups, helping drive our technology on a development, on the technology side, on testing, on regulatory, and looking for ways down that commercialization path. And each one of these groups has been tremendous to work for, and work with, I should say, and very happy to have them all aboard and still working heavily with us. So when you look at our pipeline, this is one thing that I would say we've expanded since the last time we talked, Martin. Really looking at that first two groups, the soil amendment and biofertility area. And in TerraSante, it has a tremendous opportunity. If you think of that marketplace to date, just looking at soil amendments, it's roughly about a $3.5 billion current marketplace and growing. And I'll go into a slide on that forward. TerraSante, we have a tremendous opportunity right now, and really focusing this first in the American, really US and in Canadian markets. It has a fast pathway to registration. It's a different pathway than an EPA. It's state-by-state registrations. Most times those registrations are between 6 to 9 month process, and in a very economical form for us. So it gives us a way to get in and move forward. On the biofertilizer side, we are continually look at different molecules, different opportunities, different products to bring in and complement with our own technology. the mustard meals and mustard extracts and what we have has a tremendous amount of opportunity. And we believe there's other things we can bring in and really help target and bring in new brands and new products into those other areas. So if you look at that market, it's about a $2.6 billion market to date and growing. We're really at the stage of looking at different formulations. What can we do? How do we do things? And what potentially can have that impact to growers and help complement what we have to date. So we're really excited about these areas. And I would say it's something we've done in 2022. We took a tremendous amount of work working with consultants, looking at these marketplaces to really understand where do we have a fit, how do we have a fit, and then who we can potentially have that fit with to bring these markets and products into market. And now we're starting that process now. On a soil biocontrol side, this is an area we still continue to focus on, but it's really still that registration phase and really continuing that process and driving that development and understanding with our partners. Our technology continues to work. It's all about rate, the dose rate, the timing, and the application methods. And that's where our partners really help us and help drive this. So nothing's changed in this area. We continue to move forward. I would say if existing shareholders and people who've been here a long time, a few questions I've gotten just to clear them up now is, well, how come I don't see bananas on here? How come I don't see canola? How come I don't see pulse crops? Because our portfolio is growing, we have to throw everything in this one group, and we are working with each and every one of these partners to help drive all those different marketplaces, whether it be fruit and vegetables, disease, nematodes, other pests, whether you're looking at Fusarium wilt TR4 nematodes and bananas, or whether you're looking at canola and canola or Phenomyces and pulse crops. Those are still different programs being generated and driven by our partners on a global scale. And the bioherbicide area, this is an area that we still continue to work with and really looking at formulation needs and with the extraction process we have and focusing on these with our two partners as well. On the post-harvest biocontrol and food preservation, we continue to do work with all three groups. This market continues to drive and continues to expand. And if you look at the replacement and removal of chlorpyrifos from the marketplace in Europe, different molecules potentially being removed here in the Americas, there are lots of opportunities for us, and we continue to work with those with mainly Janssen PMP and also Bayer and Sumitomo, focused on how do we utilize our technology, what's the best route, what's the best timing, and what opportunity do we have. And then, work doesn't stop. We still look at and are still seeking partners in both on bulk grains as well as into storage containers. And we see an opportunity, like I said, with our natural-based technology to help replace some of those chemistries that are still being used to date. But finding the right partner, having the right timing, application method, that's an area that we still continue to work with and are driving forward. Now, I just wanted to give you a reason why, if you think, why is this important? Why are we excited about this marketplace and the size of the agricultural space? So we're not creating anything new. We're bringing a technology that has a great impact, has a great efficacy into markets that are currently there. So on the left-hand side, if you look at it, the current pesticide and fertilizer market to date, when you look at the yellow bars, you're looking at roughly about a $65 billion marketplace in chemistries, so pesticides, growing to about $82 billion, and that's the estimate by 2030. In fertilizers, you're looking at about $195 billion marketplace, growing to 2042 by 2030. This takes in consideration too some of those deregulations, so it's still a growing marketplace. We need to utilize fertilizers and chemistries. When you look at the biocontrol and biofertility and soil amendment marketplaces, they are significant already and growing. And when I talked about the 3.5 billion one currently in soil amendment, the 2.7 billion currently in biofertility, if you look at the opportunity and how these are growing, they're growing in double-digit CAGRs to a large amount. So if you think of where we're able to play now, and obviously we're not going to attain all these different numbers. We're not going to get into every single market globally, but if you think of the overall bucket, even getting a 1%, 2%, 5% piece of this pie is tremendous. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that when you look at these marketplaces, they are large, they are growing, and they are large. And this is why you see a tremendous amount of excitement, not only from the chemical companies driving into new potential acquisitions, licensing, commercialization of biologicals, but now also the fertilizer companies too, taking a big swing and really coming in a heavy way to understand how can they be part of this, because it is a significant part of the market and growing. So when you look at it for going forward and looking for options of commercialization and production, and these are two key questions we always get. Commercialization does not just mean selling a product into the market to a farmer and getting it in. It means many different things. It can mean an M&A process. It can mean licensing. And I like this analogy. I had an old boss at Syngenta that talked about a Rubik's Cube. But think about a Rubik's Cube having like 50 different sides, and you keep moving this Rubik's Cube based on region on one side, crop on another, application on another. There's so many ways that we potentially could license a product by application, by crop, by use, by market, and even in other aspects. So looking at that licensing, and with those, typically it'd be some money up front, a heavy investment, and then a royalty after. We're also looking at different buy and supply, and it could be a buy and supply agreements, and then also other partnership and distribution models with our technology that we have in some of those areas that we have not found partners for yet. And on a production side, really, like I said before, we don't see us investing and having to invest in CapEx, as we have been able to produce product from contract manufacturers. We do see a lot of tremendous amount of open capacity around the globe, and it gives us the ability to keep our cash flow tight and adjust it and move it where we need. And that's one key thing about our technology and what we have to date. So like I said, when you look at our capital structure and look at our company, we're about 55 million shares fully diluted. You know, our market cap is there. The ownership, our capital spent, we spent about $23 million to date on expanding this technology, on IP, on many different areas. And then our debt, like I said, we still have our debt that was in there, but it's no interest bearing, not payable for until we have a significant, event. And then really, when you look at it, we do have a tremendous team. Corey and Todd have a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial area working in that in small cap spaces, myself on the corporate side, all of us being involved in knowing agriculture. And when you look at our board of directors and I would say our advisors, one thing that may be different this year, Martin, that you wouldn't have seen, or since the last time we had this call, we did add Laura Westby. Laura has a tremendous amount of understanding, expertise with global contracts and the IP and essentially legal side. And Laura and I go way back. She was, I worked with her when she was a lawyer for myself when I was at Syngenta. I negotiated against her when I was at Novozymes and she was at Syngenta, and I'm very happy to have Laura on board helping us out with the team. And with that, I open it up to questions now. And I'll just keep this in presentation mode here just in case I need to refer to something.
Okay, great. You referred to it briefly here, and we do have a lot of questions. So why don't we sort of address all this in one, and there are a lot of questions on the share price. And the share price doesn't look good in 2023. And I guess to summarize, the questions are like, what, can you give any sort of explanation? How come? And part two of that, what are you going to do, or is there anything to help support the share price?
Yeah, and you know what, I like starting this off with a little bit of a chuckle, because if I knew how to deal with share price and understand how shares are going to go, I'd be probably living on a beach somewhere and farming just half time and living on the beach the rest. I'm not. I'm heavily invested in MustGrow, so just so everybody's aware of that. But I think the biggest thing we can do, we can't control share price. We can't control what the market does. And if you look at small caps, you know, I think at 2022, the end of 2022, 2023, it's been pretty tough for a lot of small caps. And you know, it's not an excuse. I can't say why or we're not. What we need to do is continue to focus on those fundamentals. And if you look at the ag space, if you look at the sustainable agriculture space, sustainable agriculture continues to move forward and gets more light on it and more excitement around it. There's more regulations coming into play. As I said here, more chemicals are being banned and removed. Fertilizers are getting now potentially capped, and you've seen that large number in fertilizers. Imagine if there's a 30% cap. Where do we then fill that gap? Where do we fill that void? So on the fundamental side for markets, it's continue to move in the direction that we're playing in. Sustainable agriculture, organics, people want to eat healthier, and we need to produce more food. Internally, what we can do is, you know, we continue to work a lot with our existing partners, driving data, driving the technology, and finding that right pathway to commercialization in a lot of different regions they're in. So looking at that side, looking at the other areas of looking for open opportunities, and hence why, you know, we didn't just want to jump into the biofertility and soil amendment space until we got enough data to understand how. There's no use doing work unless you know the how and the why. And we do believe now that we have that how and why. And I say what we can do to try and do this is really focus on those fundamentals. You know, we're limited to how much data we can put out. We're limited to how much data and information we want to put out based on the IP side. So when you look at it, we have to do it and put that effort behind more of the fundamentals and continue to drive our technologies forward.
All right. And I just want to reiterate a point where I've been sort of beaten up over the last couple of years, and my portfolio side is, well, I don't mind a stock being down so much, but then when they're down and then all of a sudden they have to raise some equity and that damage is sort of permanent on the company. But just, you mentioned this before, to reiterate, you've got 2 years of runway. You don't need to raise capital. It's not like there'll be a dilutive event as a result of the drop in the recent drop in the share price.
Yeah, and that's correct, Martin. Listen, we do have 2 years of runway, and we can extend that if needed. There's certain things that we can do to extend that and push that forward. And we're very thankful and lucky that we have the partners helping us really drive on our biocontrol portfolio and putting that investment in. So that does give us that flexibility. So you think of that, plus also on a manufacturing side, there is a lot of capacity, a lot of open areas, and a lot of manufacturing facilities available. And take on that effort now to really understand all those and continue working with the groups that we're working with is what's giving us that freedom.
And with your runway, that includes the development of your new projects and your products here. That's not just legacy stuff. That's driving forward on to include budgets for that.
That's correct. And a big reason in taking on that venture into the soil amendment and biofertility space is, one, the timelines, but number two, the cost. It is a lot cheaper and less of investment. But that doesn't preclude us from looking for the right partners, whether that be maybe small partners or large partners, to take that product in. And if you think of that marketplace, just for people listening to understand, you look at Syngenta buying Valagro. Valagro was a biofertility biostimulant company. And the acquisition from Corteva buying Stoller was a biofertility biostimulant company. If you look at Verdesian Life Science getting bought in the past by A&E Partners, that was another biofertility company. There's a lot of excitement and investment moving into all the spaces, not only biocontrol, but also in the biofertility space. So we do believe there's opportunities for potential partnerships, but as of right now, and just long-winded answer, we are planning, if we do go in by ourselves with the right people, with the right, investments, we can do that with our current cap structure.
All right. I'm trying to group these questions here into sort of thematically here. We received some questions prior here. Could you, on the registration and regulatory environment, could you give us sort of where are we on that? Can you, the EPA have different sort of timelines than other people do. Can you give us a sort of a review on where are we on that? Is there a reason why it's taking so long, or is this sort of typical for this type of product to get through the registration process?
Yeah, and I think on that, I think, listen, the EPA process continues, as well as do other processes right around the globe. And this is something that it's hard to stick to a timeline and understanding these timelines when it comes to government and delays. And I'm going to be critical right now of the Canadian government. With people on strike, things may take longer. They will take longer. Things are going to be delayed. So, I think the biggest thing that the audience needs to understand is we still work through this. We're working with our partners on registration process around the globe. We have a very good consultant that helps us out. We continue to work through and towards this process. But we don't see any reason why that there should be any challenges. We have an existing granule product with the same active ingredient that is registered not only in the EPA, but also in the PMRA here in Canada. So it's just really looking at how do we take this new formulation and work through all the paperwork and areas of understanding. And that's something we just still have to continue to work through. So I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you when, but we don't. We have to work through and we have to work through with our partners to continue that process and see where what we need to do to move that registration process along.
And with the registration process, do they, I'm sort of and trying to make it a little analogous to the FDA and drug approval process. Do they have to, like you talked about the drip, the dosage, the timing, there's so many parameters on that. Does the EPA get involved with sort of the prescribed dosage and application of it? Or do they just sort of, hey, it's effective, or do they just, is it safe and effective and go for it? And how you actually want to tell the farmers to apply it regarding specific crops is kind of up to you and your partners.
Yeah, and so that you do, and you essentially set your label, Martin, and it's going to be different across different countries. So South American, Canadian, European, but it's in a lot of ways, it's very similar. As an organization, we do set our label. We set the parameters based on the data, the understanding, the science that we know and we have. But you have to be able to present that data in a very large format to each one of these different government agencies to show them that this is what you need. There's something called the lowest effective dose rate, saying you cannot, you have to understand where's the breaking point of your technology? Where are you exceeding it? So I would say it's very similar to FDA. I don't have as much understanding and experience in the FDA, but talking to some different pharma companies, it is very similar in a lot of ways, just at different timelines and dollar figures.
You mentioned earlier in your presentation that I believe in the next 12 months, you could be seeing some material revenues. And is that sort of assuming you'll get registration in the US, or what assumptions are baked into that? And what are the risks why makes you think it could happen? And what are the risks that maybe it wouldn't happen within 12 months?
Yeah, and I would say when you look at that 12-month period, it may or may not be based off of registration, and it may be off a licensing or other type of fees that could come in. But we do see, and the potential is there for us to get one, looking at the registration in the US across multiple fronts, potentially with the EPA, but also potentially on the soil amendment and biofertility side. Now, when you're looking at going into those platforms, year one would be sales. And when I say significant sales, everybody has a different idea of significant. It's going to take growers usually take a couple years to 3 years to really ramp up and take on a new product. So, but I do see different pathways. Now, when we look at it, like I said, with the soil amendment and biofertility pathway, it's a fast, quicker to market. We're still waiting on EPA. We're waiting on different things across different markets, but it's also then looking at the potential partnership values and areas.
So on the fertilizer and biofertility side, the EPA doesn't get involved with that. That's only on a state-by-state basis where that gets approved?
Correct. So when you look at those, it is state-by-state in the US, and it's quite a bit quicker. In Canada, it is CFIA. In Europe, it's a little bit different. In South America, it's a little bit different. But in the US, it is state-by-state driven and typically a faster process. You still need the science. You still need the data behind it. But it is a little bit quicker process in that area.
Gotcha. Okay. Clock is ticking here. So I want to talk about your partners. You've got 4 very large, substantial partners globally. There's not a lot of your news flow over the last year hasn't been great, but you're like a duck. Your legs are moving fast, and your body looks very calm here. What kind of commentary can you give us on your relationship or the development with your partners? If something had gone very poorly, would you have to release or announce that, saying, oops, we're no longer working, or the terms of our work with partner X has been greatly diminished? What would you have to disclose there, or what can you disclose?
Yeah, and like I said, so we have 4 great partners who are currently and actively investing and moving our technology forward in each one of the different regions. So you are correct. If something material happened, for example, if Janssen came back and said, no, we do not want to go forward anymore, that would be material, and we would have to announce that. In each one of these different areas, yes, news flow sometimes it may be limited. But you have to understand the background behind that, the amount of IP that we've been able to generate because of different data points. We are working with 4 billion and multi-billion-dollar companies in some cases. You have to understand that a lot of that data and that commercial expertise they view as a lot of ways could be confidential. So we are limited. At one point, it's maybe negative not being able to put out news, but on the positive side, you have all these groups continuing to invest, continue to work with our product, and continue to drive things forward. And we try to put those out. And I look at news flow over the past little while, Martin. Just on that point, we did announce Sumitomo based on their current contract on that auction extension earlier this year, or earlier in last 2020 or late 2022. If you think of being able to announce and increase our patent portfolio from 23 to 84 over a 3-year period, that's significant. If you think of really driving into these soil amendment areas, for us, it's very significant, we believe. And having these partners gives us that ability. We're still a small team. We need that time. We need the effort. We need the cash to be able to go into these other markets. If it wasn't for these partners helping us, we wouldn't have been able to execute in a lot of those different areas. So I would say our partners they continue to drive this. There's a continued excitement. And I think we have a great technology that fits very well in each one of their portfolios. And now it's about finding the right ways, timing, and how we get in there.
Should we, for the TerraSante product, should we be expecting or hoping for some partnership news on that? Is that sort of the path, would be the hopeful path forward for you on that product, or would that be maybe something you go alone on? What kind of news could we sort of hope to expect for on with that product?
Yeah, and on that product, I would say there is always a potential. We always look for partners, and we're always open to have discussions and those points. We do have a good opportunity, though, even internally in a small scale, to target the customer base that was using our old product in the past. And we did have some fairly significant sales of a biofertility product in the past time, and with the granule. So when you look at these other areas, we could go on our own, we could go with partners. And right now, that's at that next stage. We know the market, we know where to go. We have many different options, and whether it's a partner or whether alone, I think it's still a great opportunity.
All right, but partnerships is a potential on that side.
It is, and if you look at, like I said, you look at the organizations investing in this area, you look at the Nutrients, the Yaras, Koch Fertilizers, you look at UPL, you look at the Syngenta, Bayers, BSFs. Each one of these organizations and others are investing not only in biocontrol, but they are looking at biostimulation, because soil health, yield, and then if they can get into the fertilizers, with fertilizers being potentially limited or in some parts around the world, it gives each one of those organizations an opportunity. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of different investment on biofertility and biostimulation companies over the past little while.
And I just want to editorialize here, but soil health is not just, let's say, economic on the basis of the farmers. It can help improve yields. These are, like, I know Ag Canada, that's a strategic objective. They're trying to get their farmers to improve soil health. This is not like, there are a lot of forces, I guess, coming into play trying to promote this. And economics and yields are one of them, but there are others as well.
There is. And if you think of the soil microbiome, if you think of having a healthy soil, a healthy root zone, a healthy plant, theoretically, and if you look at data, you do have a better carbon sink, you do have better yield, you have better fertilizer use, better water use efficiencies, and then over time, you do build up your soil. So if you think of some of the areas in India, Asia, even parts of the US that have dead soils from either salt use, over fertilization, over chemistry use, other factors, soil health is critical. And we have data behind it that we have a very positive effect on the soil microbiome. And we're at that cusp of really trying to see how do we then move this forward. And hence why we're really excited about TerraSante.
And just to editorialize again, I know that carbon sequestration in soil through soil health is an actual thing your people are getting carbon credits for. So there's lots of avenues for that. We're running short here. There's a question here. Can you please, and I don't know anything about this, can you please comment on Mustard 21? Some news about them in the news lately.
Yeah, so Mustard 21 is a development group here in Saskatchewan, Alberta, that is trying to drive new value chains around mustard. Mustard is a key crop for southern Saskatchewan, southern Alberta. They are working on a hybridized mustard. What that means is essentially right now all mustards pretty much grown anywhere are open pollinated, and they don't have any hybrid varieties, any different traits. Mustard 21 is working on a hybrid variety that potentially could be another good fit in a essentially biofumigation. So essentially, like I said, cover cropping system. Mustard is still used. Growers will plant mustard, they'll water it, they'll fertilize it, it'll grow for 60 days, and then they till it into the soil. We've always said that we have a great product to help replace or complement mustard cover cropping. And I say that because our product's more efficient, it's more targeted, you don't need all the other aspects around it. And sometimes when you're growing up a mustard, for a cover crop, you have incremental weather, you have, we had snow last week in Saskatchewan, which would have killed one of those crops. Sometimes you can't get it, and it's a lost adventure. So we do have a very good targeted, efficient way to do it. So what's all the best of Mustard 21? They've been a very big proponent of ours and helping try to drive MustGrow. And having a hybrid variety may, it could open up more avenues for us as well. So all the best to them.
All right. I think we've got to wrap it up here quickly. There's one maybe hyperbolic type question here. Do you see yourselves running a large agriculture tech company, or do you see like sort of someone scooping you guys up, or just sort of like having a value creation event sooner than that?
Yeah, and Martin, we wake up every day to try to create value. And I know maybe these past few months or so, people maybe don't see that, but we are still trying to create value. We're shareholders first. Now, if somebody does come to us in a large event like that, then listen, if it's something, we would have to put something out to the shareholders on a vote. But we do see this being a very large opportunity. And if you think of the space, like I said, again, we think there's about $36 billion of opportunity that we're playing in. That's current. We learn stuff almost every day about mustard and the components and what we can do with it. So yeah, maybe the aspiration would be to continue to grow this, but it's all about creating that value and how do we do it. And being a small organization with a tight cap structure, with a tight cash flow, really 2 years, we're working through our partners, trying to expand this globally, get as much knowledge as we can, and find the right pathways to commercialization with them, as well as potentially with others. So whether to M&A, whether it be licensing, whether us be selling it, and being a huge company, those are all things we are working towards.
All right. Any more questions, or do we have to wrap this up here?
I can handle a few more. Yeah.
All right. Do you have competitors out there, like either direct or other types of technology that are that could provide the same solutions you do?
Yeah, and I know I've always said this in the past, and I think our competitors are the big chemical companies, because our first target is the chemistries that are used to date that in a lot of cases are being banned or deregulated. So it gives us a very good opportunity. There are many companies working on biologicals, whether that be living organisms like Bacillus or Trichoderma, Streptomyces, different molecules in that nature. There's other companies working with enzymes. There's other companies working with extracts from different other plants, tea tree oil. There's a great company out of Israel. I think one of the coolest companies out there, they're using spider venom. They've been around for decades. The key thing is when I look at this, there's many different areas, but our biggest is the chemical industry, the chemical companies that we will be targeting. And I think we're in the right space. Most of the stuff that we're trying to replace either has bans, has limitations, has lots of restrictions. So if you think of a product that we eat, when you have sushi, you have wasabi, and you feel that burn in your nose, that's the same molecule we're taking into the soil and putting it back in. When you think of something that has an effect that can compete against some of those nasty chemicals, we're in a very good spot. So, there's always going to be competitors, but right now for mustard extracts, for these two components, our IP portfolio, our extraction know-how, I have to say we're very unique. And we mentioned that on the second slide or third slide, in our first kind of summary slide.
All right. With the situation in the Ukraine and disruption in fertilizer markets, and just sort of a lot of natural produce markets, has that impacted how your partners or yourself are going about things, or is that just more of kind of background noise?
I would say for my partners, it would be more background noise from what I understand, and for us, probably more background noise. But I think for the industry as a whole and the consumer, it brought light onto food security and food as a whole. And where does our food come? What's being used? Where is our food going to be coming from? Not just where does it come from. So I think as a whole in global industry, it's actually brought a positive light on for us. Food production is key. It's critical, and it just shows how small disruptions, whether it be war, whether it be environmental or government legislation or others, could impact it dramatically. So I would say it's not a good thing, but it's brought light to something in agriculture and the importance of agriculture around the globe.
All right. There's a question here specifically surrounding the Fusarium wilt and TR4. Can you comment specifically on that developments or progress or anything?
Partners continue to look at that and work towards that. It's one, I'm going to say it's a very challenging molecule, since that is that disease essentially is in quarantine. Being able to work in different regions, different countries is very difficult. And our partners continue to do work on it, look at it, and try drive towards it. But I would just say we continue to work with bananas. We continue to work on also other diseases and nematodes in bananas. So it is a very big, important market right across the globe.
All right. You mentioned 84 total patents. Can you elaborate what that number means? Is that a lot? Is that still growing? Are you, I guess, sort of targeting it towards your new biofertility areas? Talk about your patents a bit.
I can't tell you where we're targeting and what we're moving forward because I could disclose or move something in that direction. But we do continue to look at expanding and driving our technologies in our portfolio. And I would say, is it a lot? For a small cap organization and all the organizations that I either, in my past life purchased or looked at purchasing, it's a significant number. To disclose where they all are, what they do, if a competitor is listening or somebody is listening to this, they can go and look. And I would just say for us, it's a significant number with the aspiration that we continue to look at expanding that with more data and information that comes into place. But you have to understand, it's not just the patents, Martin, it's also the know-how and trade secrets. And that's where we do have some of the leading experts, I would say globally, on a process optimization looking at this. And that's something that's extremely key.
All right. In turn, you talked about these giant markets, and if you get 1 or 2%, that's a huge amount. Like, you've had consultants do economic studies, I'm sure, on this. Is there any, is 1 or 2% market share, or do you have any kind of be more little precise on what impact you could have on your targeted markets? Like, would this be a niche product, or could it be used on mass on the large grain crops, or is it just going to be on the nichey little organic farmers?
Yeah. So on that, I can't disclose. We definitely do have it broken out by organic, conventional, by crop, by country. We do know those and have those assessments and adjustments. And I'm going to say organic's not niche. If you look at the global organic market, it is large. With very few options and different areas. So no, this is not just limited to a niche market, Martin. We do see this going into both conventional areas, high value fruit and vegetable productions, bananas. If you look at the amount of chemicals used in those areas, it's significant. If you look at the fertility side, so we do have those numbers, but we don't disclose those. And that's something that we work towards. And you're right, we have spent money looking at it, working with educated people from the ground up, looking at each individual market, and it's a substantial opportunity.
All right. There are a lot of questions here, but I think they're largely in due course. Do you anticipate commercial sales to build incrementally over the first few years, or are you expecting very rapid growth? And I want to circle back to, you made a comment that farmers, it takes a couple of years for them to try it out. I'm guessing one of the ways they do it is they've got, 100 acres, and they'll put 10 acres aside initially and test it out. And then next year it'll maybe be 30 acres. Is that sort of how it would get adopted by farmers?
Yeah, and typically that's how it works. So usually you have people looking at it, working with it, and you have a ramp up depending on country, depending on whether it be conventional growers or organic growers. So you are going to see that different ramp up and different timings with different partners. Gotcha.
There are a couple questions here on a retail product. Could I be picking some up at my local Home Depot at some point and spreading it out on my on my tomatoes in the backyard?
That is a potential, and we don't have home and garden applications with these different partners currently, but that is something that you definitely, hopefully, and potentially could see in the future.
Gotcha. And your product is derived from the mustard seed. Would there be any issues of mustard supply chain issues where they're not growing enough mustard to produce your what you need?
No, and that's one thing that's very unique about mustard, Martin, is we do have a significant amount of production here in Western Canada, close to where we are. It's a very arable crop, and it can be grown pretty much anywhere. If you think of the different areas, it is grown in many different regions around the world. So we don't see it being a limiting factor. But
all right. Well, I think with that, we need to wrap things up here, yep. Colin. Greatly appreciate your time. Any last words, final comments here as we wrap it up?
No, you know what? Like I said, our partners, ourselves, we're very excited about this opportunity. The industry is moving in this direction. Everything is still there. So I would say, we continue forward and continue to execute on what we said we were going to do, find the right partners, expand this as best we can, find the right path to commercialization, find the production, and we continue to inch along and move things forward the way we need to do. And agriculture is a large market. It takes time, and working with the large partners, it does take time and has some limitations on what we can say and not say. So I just, with that, I thank you for your time. I thank everybody for the afternoon, and I wish everybody best of luck in the rest of 2023.
All right. Thanks a lot, Colin. That was a great update. All the best, and talk to you again soon. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you.